I'm Michael Josh, and I'll be refuting Yvonne's speech. So, in Yvonne's claim of fact speech, she argued that co-ed dorms were potentially dangerous to the college students. Her main claim is that co-ed dorms propose substantial dangers for college students. Her secondary claim is that co-ed dorms cause many risks, such as sexual harassment and abuse. Although I am not thoroughly convinced that co-ed dorms are the reasons for sexual harassment and abuse. My counterclaim states that individual behavior is the reason for sexual harassment and abuse. In her secondary claim, Yvonne does qualify some of her grounds. However, the lack of citations of her qualified evidence does diminish the credibility of her sources. She quotes the National Victim Center and the American Association of University Women Educational Foundation. The quote from the National Victim Center states that 1 out of 4 women will be sexually assaulted on a college campus, and that 1 out of 8 women will be raped while in college. Although these statistics are daunting ones, there are no connections that lead the audience to believe that sexual harassment and abuse is caused by co-ed dorms. According to David Anderson, professor at George Mason University, who has studied drugs and alcohol effects on college campuses since 1979, he claims that co-ed dorms can improve student behavior. He continues by saying co-ed dorm mates look out for each other like brothers and sisters. If such behavioral phenomena are occurring throughout college campuses, then co-ed dorms actually benefit the overall state of college. Next, the research report from the American Association of University Women Educational Foundation presents data showing that 2,000 college students had been subjected to sexual harassment while at college. This report also does not show the correlation between sexual harassment and co-ed dorms. Without the citation, I cannot concede that this evidence is fully verifiable and relevant to her main proposition, thus rendering the evidence fallacious. I mean, how many of you would go around and sexually harass your floor mates? Right. Thus, co-ed dorms do not promote sexual harassment and abuse. Furthermore, she argues that from various sources, such as pop culture, media, and social networking, promote sexual harassment. There has been no clear evidence that the portrayal of women in such a sexual manner has any correlation to sexual harassment in dorm life. According to Spectrum College Transition Program, co-ed dorm life promotes safe environments for students of opposite genders to socialize, which is more reflective of a realistic environment in today's society. The program also states that co-ed dorms allow more opportunities to make valuable friends and promote gender equality. Although in today's society, not everyone makes good decisions. Sometimes it is a person's irresponsible behavior that leads to scenes of sexual harassment and abuse, and thus brings about my counterclaim. I believe that behavior of individuals promotes sexual harassment and abuse, rather than co-ed dorms. Take, for example, the attempted rapes on college campuses. According to Crisis Connection, 90% of all campus rapes occur under the influence of alcohol. With the misuse of alcohol, men and women alike are more vulnerable and easy targets for sexual assaults. If the consumption of alcohol is moderated and safely consumed, men and women would be more aware of their surroundings. So in conclusion, I do not agree with Yvonne on the basis that co-ed dorms propose sexual harassment and abuse. In regards to her evidence, a majority lack citations to check the validity and credibility of the sources. Also, her evidence was mainly assumptions based on the inferential belief that co-ed dorms somehow instigated the sexual harassment and abuse in college life. While the quote from David Anderson suggests that co-ed dorm life is beneficial to students in regards to their behavior and treatment towards the opposite sex. And lastly, my counterclaim to her speech is that individual behavior, not co-ed dorms, promotes sexual behavior and abuse. So instead of changing the housing systems of college campuses, why not moderate the behavior of individuals to make a safe environment?
All right, all the major claims were labeled and the secondary issues were pointed out. I thought you challenged the authority of the evidence on the first point adequately. The strongest part of the argument is that none of the evidence seems to be linked to co-ed dorms, just campus life. And that may be true whether there are dormitories, whether they're not dormitories, whether the dormitories are single sex or mixed sex. The advocate's evidence doesn't distinguish. We don't have any basis for comparison. That's the way you want to summarize that. And then you've got a good counterclaim arguing that there is, in fact, some evidence that it moderates behavior and it has a productive impact. Same sort of thing on the sexual harassment issue. I think you've got a very legitimate challenge on the link that the advocate came up with here. You say the evidence is fallacious. It's not so much that the evidence is fallacious as that it's not relevant, and it's the claim that is undermined, not so much the evidence by that particular argument. On the argument about the media networking and, again, the issue of sexual harassment, again, there's a good challenge on whether or not it's related to co-ed dorms that the advocate seems to be making. There's a lot of equivocation that's going on in these arguments. It says anytime they're talking about something that happens on campus, that's being equivocated as being related to a co-ed dorm. And the advocate is not providing adequate evidence to show that it's dorm related. I think that's pretty reasonable. And you've got a good counterclaim here that says individual behaviors, for example, rapes being committed under the influence of alcohol is, strongly indicative of this behavior being controlled by something other than the living circumstances. I think you could argue, for instance, that most of the dorms have strict regulations on access to alcohol, and that would therefore suggest that it's less likely to occur in those circumstances. I thought your summary was pretty effective. You could use a little bit more eye contact. Thank you.